Let's just recap where we started. So Pepe, before you joined us, we're just explaining that in, the various conversations we have on food branding and packaging, we sort of have had various conversations recently on what are the most important things to talk about. And it's things like, what genre of food is it? Is it breakfast? Is it a snack? Is it something else? Within that genre, what subgenre is it? So if it's breakfast, is it cereal? Is it something you toast? Is it something you eat on the run? And then there's like, which section of the supermarket is it sold in, and is it premium, mid-level or entry level? But provenance came up as a really important theme to talk about for food brands. And this is something that you and I were chatting about a couple of weeks ago as part of our general research into this area. And you had some really, really heartfelt things to say about provenance, which is why we thought we'd love to welcome you, live this time and share your thoughts. So that's all we're going to be talking about. But maybe we'll start a little bit further back and just get a little bit of background for people that don't know the Pepe Saya brand that well. So you started in 2010, but what were some things that attracted you to butter?
I think at the time when we started in butter, before we started in butter, Melissa and I, so my wife Melissa, or partner, we always knew that we wanted to be as close as possible to primary industry, but not necessarily in there milking the cows. I mean, I take my hat off to anyone that owns a farm and they're milking cows, looking after husbandry, and it's a whole nother business together. Like people that run their own herds and milk and then try to put a product out to the market. I mean, these guys are very, very skilled because they're running essentially almost three businesses at once. One's the business of the land, the other's the business of their herd, and another one's the business of the product, getting it to market, right? So people that run those sorts of businesses, I take my hat off to. I don't think I'm skilled enough to that's way above my pay grade to do, work, run the land, run a herd, and run a product.
Yeah.
We always thought that if you're going to do one, you have to do one and do it really, really well. And I guess that's where you look at Pepe Saya. We specialize in butter. We're not interested in making yogurt, for example.
Yeah.
So, I was saying to Stephanie before, like, why not cheese or why not this or that? But focus.
Hearing you say that.
So it was a focus. So it did look, the business as a whole. We were in a business where we were supplying. We were making a dessert into the FMCG or you could call it fine food sector. Where we're supplying like panna cottas, tiramisu, bavaroise, things that are grab and go. So in about 2009, we started up a grab and go company, and that was targeted really at Harris Farm and Thomas Ducks and the delis and the fine food sector. Because what we noticed in 2009 or the beginning of 2009, for those out there that are my age or older, you probably would have noticed if you walked into, a fine food store in 2009 looking for something sweet to take home to have after dinner that was a bit gourmet, you would end up with a yogurt with a strawberry topping. That was considered a dessert because in Australia, when yogurts came out, that Yoplait sort of yogurt, and then it went on to those Greek style yogurts that were sweetened, they were viewed as dessert. So as we were making our desserts and entering the market, learning about shelf space and markets and delis, and like we cut our teeth quite early on with that because we didn't have a food service range. I stumbled across butter because we had cream left over 2 weeks before Christmas, and none of our mates in the industry would take it. So we decided, because one of the products we made was a crumble, I decided, oh, let's turn this into butter so we could use it after the Christmas break. And then, well, it wasn't that great, the butter that we made, but it 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 got, the question was raised of, well, if I'm making butter from this cream, why doesn't it taste good? How do you make good tasting butter? And then those sort of questions sort of snowballed into, well, how do you make good tasting butter? I had a lot of time to think about it over the Christmas break, and when I came back, because I'd read up so much about, you know, fat and you know, especially I developed an obsession almost with butter. That how do you make great tasting butter? And then that snowballed in talking to a lot of people in the industry that are big users of butter, like, you know, pastry chefs or chefs in restaurants. And then we noticed like that I guess this was the catalyst to actually building Pepe in 2009. Like we launched in 2010, but we built it in 2009, was most of the chefs I spoke to were importing their butter. So the way it worked is they wanted, when you go to a restaurant, and this is very important to understand, when you go to a restaurant, the restaurant is trying to give you an experience. So usually you'll book at a restaurant, like say in Sydney, Hubert or Kitchen by Mike or Rockpool, you book their restaurant based on their reputation. And then you go there, and if you're really impressed and you have a really great time, you'll book again and you'll tell friends, and they snowball, right? So butter's part of that experience in a restaurant. So it's part of, like, the bread, the butter is the first thing you have, and it's part of an experience.
True.
So you belong
It's often
in that category.
one of the first things you get, isn't it, to go with your first drink? Yeah,
so if you're having nice, hot, warm, toasty, crusty bread with a beautiful butter that's cultured, so that's the reason, and I'm telling you all this just to get you to the reason why Australian chefs in 2009 had to book in their butter almost yearly in the big restaurants, and they book in French butter to offer people an experience. So the question came up. So everything's a question, right? So, so you cut off one head, you end up with two, and then you cut off two, you end up with four. So then the question was, well, why aren't they buying Australian butter? And that question rose to more questions. And when we get the answers give us more questions. So the second question was, why aren't you buying Australian butter? The answer was,
of course.
Australian butter tastes like salt and water. Okay, well, how can you make a good tasting butter? So that was the question. And then that led to, well, you know, if you're from an English lineage, you're going basically churn the fresh cream, add the certain amount of salt, and that's your good tasting butter. But if you're from a European lineage, you're going culture the cream, have it unsalted, sprinkle salt on top when you eat it, right? Yeah. But then again, it depends. When you break it down even more, it was like, well, what about salted butter? So if you're in Normandy, Brittany, in France, they pride themselves on, you know, almost 5% salt in the butter. Yeah. Because their butter, their salt. 5%. So, yeah, they put a lot of salt on there. They love their salt. But then once you start moving in different areas of Europe, it's unsalted, and you know, so this was the challenge we had about, you know, understanding. Okay, well, where does the flavor come into the cream from? Why is it yellow? Why is it like? So it was all about asking questions and then looking for the answers. In Australia, our industry started around the mid-1800s. And they were a carbon copy of where they were, say, in England or the UK at the time. So you could pretty much say that, you know, it was industrialized from the get-go. So this is this is where your starting point in Australia. So So when you start breaking that down even more, we never had cottage industries, except for Elizabeth MacArthur and a few other people that had their own cows and so on. But as an industry, it was always butter and cheese was made and it was sent back to England. So it was industrialized. So, but now in modern Australian farming, you've got a lot of breakaways. So since farmers can sell their cream to anyone they want at the price they can demand, a lot more smaller people have come into the game. So we tend to look for farmers that do a very high quality cream, and then we tend to buy that cream at a fair price. So we would pay at the moment during COVID between $2.50 to $3.50 a litre of cream. And then it takes 2 litres of cream to make 1 kilo of butter. So our starting price for a kilo of butter without churning, culturing, when we started making the butter right at the beginning, we were having a lot of problems with the cream because we couldn't culture the cream properly because it had all sorts of things, permeates, powders. So when you would culture it, add a bacteria to sour it down, like you would yogurt, use a different strain, a lactobacillus, it wouldn't culture properly, and we'd end up with a lot of water and films of water coming through in the creme fraiche or the soured cream we were trying to make. So we had to look directly for farms that would potentially be able to supply us the raw product, or the product that's pure without anything added in. So basically just cream skimmed off milk. And the first farm we found was Country Valley Dairy, which is in Picton. So they were the only farm in the Sydney Basin that would be able to supply us. So
was that the gentleman that I've heard that you originally started with, that you still get?
Yeah. Well, I still get his cream now. We still work with John Fairley. Yeah. So
yes, John Ferry. That's right.
Yeah, he's a very interesting character, because at first he didn't want to supply us the cream, and he said to me, we want to make our own butter here on the farm, which is sort of that sort of American way of, it's all farm gate or European way, where it's all, everything that you buy products are made on farm. And then somehow we convinced him that you need to give us this cream because we can make better butter than you can. And then eventually he gave it to us. But I mean, we did learn a lot about, I think we learned together a lot about, I mean, you can't say, farmers understand provenance no matter what level of farming they're at. But we learned a lot, and we learned together a lot about, the provenance, or the concept of, when you talk about provenance, you talk about terroir, you talk about everything's involved. You talk about, the climate, you talk about sustainability, you talk about everything. So it's a very wide.
Was there a lot of learning there?
Oh my God, I'm still learning. I'm still learning every day.
Wow.
I mean, you learn from people, you learn from the product, you learn from packaging, you learn from, if you're willing to listen, you'll learn. That's for sure. And if you're willing to stop and go, okay, well, why do I need to know these things? You'll learn a lot. But it depends. I mean, they've got a nickname for me. It's Purpose Sayer. So I always have a purpose in what I do. And awesome. My purpose for the last 11 years has been, or 12 now, because, we took a year to make it, but say 11 to 12 years has been to perfect the art of making an artisan butter. So, I was going to say, and we had to work out what scale we had to be at to be able to make an artisan butter sustainable.
Oh yeah, wow.
So you can start with a little mixer, and you can make artisan butter, but then you're working for 12 hours a day and you're making $10.
Yeah.
That's what we mean by unsustainable. Like
Yeah.
you know.
We had a question earlier from one of our viewers today, from Jill. She said, is there a gold standard in butter? And I'm going to paraphrase some things you've said. So you've sourced the best cream from the best farmers possible. You've asked and asked and asked and kept refining your methods.
Yeah.
You've used a type of butter, which you call cultured butter, which is a technique that wasn't really sort of widely practiced in Australia until you started bringing that method in. So those seem to be, I guess, your gold standard of butter. Is there sort of anything else, like a grand, something else that you're working towards?
No, I think the question to answer it, the gold standard or the standard would have to be to personal preference.
Yes.
I mean, when it comes to what you buy as a consumer. Now, let it be said that there's a lot of people that love what we do here at Pepe Saya, and there's a lot of people that say, I can't eat your butter because of the way it smells or tastes or whatever. And that's also okay, because, that's the whole concept, right, of food. Like, some of us like to eat snails cooked in garlic and butter, and some go, oh my God, you're eating snails. So it is a personal preference on that on that front.
Yeah.
As a standard, as an artisan, it's also very hard to dictate what is a standard, what is the highest gold standard, and what is not. I mean, for us here, I mean, I've traveled all over Europe and visited about 27 butter factories. What we're doing here at Pepe Saya is world standard if you put it up against what I've seen. Are we better than others? I couldn't judge that, because that is only going to be determined on the cream they use, the product they make, the flavor they want to give their potential customers or customers. So
like when it comes, what you said before, it comes down to the farmers and how they treat their cows and all of that. That's what you rely on.
That's right. And look, from what I've seen in Australia, and I've traveled to a lot of farms around Australia, all up and down the East Coast, down in Tassie, you'd be hard to find a dairy farmer that are not doing best practice. I mean, it's hard. Like, okay, 10 years ago, you could argue that, they're sending off the calves and, they're doing the wrong thing here. They're not sustainable. These days, I mean, you got to think about it. People get this very mixed up. They get grass-fed, grain-finished, grain-fed beef mixed up with cows for dairy, right? Milking cows. They get that very mixed up. And we get a lot of calls, do you grain feed your cows? I mean, no, look, the farmer's job is to keep this cow milking for 12 to 15 years. That's sustainability, right? When you talk about beef cattle, you're going for 16 months to 2 years. It's a very different thing altogether, like I think from what I've seen from Australian farming and what I've visited all over Europe and seen, I think we're pretty good. We're best in class. Like, hats off to the dairy industries and our farmers. They've done a great job.
Well, you have become quite a cult name. So you put a call out on Facebook a couple of months ago asking designers to help you, and you were overwhelmed. So everyone just knows Pepe Saya and loves it. But we thought we'd actually ask about your brand as well. This might be more of a Jeffrey question, because he's the visual guy in our team. But can you tell us about the head?
One I prepared earlier.
Yes.
I'm glad you did. I met you probably about 5 years ago. I don't know if you remember it, Pat and Sticks was across. Yeah. I mean, to enter the you're a premium butter, no doubt about it. And to enter that market with your big, it looks like it reminds me of a waiter, a very waiter that knows.
Yeah. It's like,
but it's like, it's premium. And I love the boldness of the way you took. I mean, for me, it's distinctive. How did people react to that? That's different.
Yeah, originally when we put a head on the butter, people were saying to us that's never going to work. It's going to put people off. But I think we had some really good advice early on. Funny story is on the front of the butter, when you look at it, there used to be cows here with an Australian scene, which we've kept the Australian scene. So if you look at the back, you'll see a windmill and an Australian landscape, which we love so much. You know, that dry, arid landscape, a little bit hilly, but very dry. And there's always a windmill, you know. And all we had was the Pepe Saya logo at the back like that. And on the front, it was cows. And one day I was chatting with Stu Gregor, who owns Liquid Ideas. And he said, Pepe, why wouldn't you put the head on the front and make it iconic? And I just looked at him and I go, you're 100% right. And that's what I did. So I'm by no means a whiz at marketing, but he is. So
yeah,
when he speaks to me, I listen, you know, and this is what a lot of people need to understand, that sometimes, you know, we have great ideas, but getting a opinion might actually make something amazing. So I actually looked at it and I thought, he goes to me, you've got cows on the front. Don't people know that, like, butter's from cows? Why wouldn't you put the head? The head's good. So straight away, I left him that day and I went and put the head on the front. And then I looked at it and a lot of people hated it, right? They go, oh, that's never going to work. I'm like, well, that's the brand. Let's just go with it and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And it really...
So you're saying some people should just shut up and listen sometimes?
Yeah, well, I certainly did. I certainly did exactly that. Like, but the everything else hasn't changed from 2009 when I designed it. So it still says Australian cultured butter because it's not a European style. It's Australian. Everything about it's Australian. It's unique in flavor to the provenance, the terroir of where the cream comes from, which is Australia. And then it's churned by Pepe Saya. So we churn the butter. You know, the butter's there in the cream already. We're just churning it. So we don't make it. It's there. We just churn it out. So, and I guess with the head, and then we managed to put that out, and it did capture people's imagination that, you know, like, well, why the head? Where did the head come from? Well, the head was the idea of the head when I started the brand is I had the name first. So Pepe was my nickname, given to me by my dad, and because my name's Pierre Issa, and Saya. I used to always say, Pepe is in Saya, Saya being an island escape in your mind. So I know, don't ask how, it's just how it was. Anyway, imagination for you. So I dropped the middle is in, and we ended up with Pepe Saya. So the two syllables, it just worked.
That's so funny. Because for years, I thought you were like, it was some like sort of Spanish or American name, and that was your name. And that's why I asked you earlier, like, what's your background? Where you're from? How did you
it's sort of short for Giuseppe in a way, but my name's Pierre, like, you know. So my personal heritage is my mum's Anglo-Australian with a Scottish background. They're McKinnons.
Yep.
She grew up in the Shire, in Sutherland Shire, in New South Wales, Sydney. And my dad immigrated here in the late 60s. And obviously, you know, because Australia opened up for trade, skilled tradespeople, and he was a boilermaker by trade. So they got married.
And he was from Lebanon, right?
He's from Lebanon, and Lebanon used to be a French colony till 1944. So most of the Christian quarter of Lebanon were commonly, or majority of them, have French names. So hence why I'm not called Peter, or the Arab version would be Boutros. I'm called Pierre. So
yeah, cool.
So
gosh,
please.
Yeah. Oh no, I was going to say we've covered some really interesting ground, but probably probably a final area I'd like to cover is the collaborations you've been making. So, and this is both an interesting branding question, but it also goes back to a comment that you made a couple of weeks back, which is that you said that more businesses should be aware of the ecosystem that they operate in. So, you know, so if you're a butter, you don't just sort of go to a household and get consumed in isolation. You become, you know, part of the performance at a restaurant, for example. And butter goes with so many other things. It goes with crumpets, it goes with Vegemite, it goes with jam. And what's really interesting is if, you know, on your product lineup now, you kind of have incorporated all of those things into your offering, you know, so you've got the collaboration with Umite, the collaborations with Crumpets by Myrna. So do you want to tell us, I know I've just thrown a ton of things at you, but do you want to tell us a little bit about how what those collaborations, you know, how you bring them to life creatively first? With the design and the branding?
Yeah, I think you've got to work out where you want to be with them. So collaborations work on so many different levels, but on the base level where they work is that because they're joint ventures, so take Crumpets by Myrna or take Umite, Myrna has her own followers that buy her crumpets. Now, you as a brand owner, you need to get across those people that follow Crumpets by Myrna. So doing collaborations gets everyone that knows Crumpets by Myrna to know Pepe Saya, and everyone that knows Pepe Saya to know Crumpets by Myrna. So that's sort of how that collaborations really work from a functional point of view and why we do them.
Yeah,
now, but there's also the part where I love is that they're genuinely fun to do, because you're meeting so many different people, and it comes back to that cross promotion. When we say cross promote, it
makes sense, doesn't it?
Like you know, like some and so many things come out of cross promotions, like so many great relationships, so many great stories. I mean, stories you probably never share online, but personal things that come out of it. So, I mean, that's the basis of a collaboration. And when we started in 2009, because we've always collaborated, we very much saw this being done very early on. I mean, you think of a really good collaboration. I know this is going to sound maybe tacky to some of your listeners here, but you think of, you know, Kenny Rogers with Dolly Parton.
Like Batman and Robin.
You know what I mean? Like there's a collaboration.
Cheech and Chong.
like you're talking about, you know, way back in the music industry where they bring two together and, you know, and especially what we saw in the music industry, which is unbelievable marketing, is the way they bring in new talent is they get them to collaborate with someone that's existing, especially in the R&B arena. And that really fascinated me, like in the mid 2000s or early 2000s, and I've held that with me for a long time. The way they do that is because you can really do a lot of stuff. You can because most of us are running our marketing departments on 5 cents a day, you know, like a tweet, that's our marketing, you know, or an Instagram post is our marketing.
Or a live broadcast.
5 cents. So
just
know,
about
like,
that.
Yeah, so it's sort of like when you look at that, a collaboration is a very easy fix when you think about the amount of money you need to, because you'll get a bit of media traction as well through a collaboration, especially
the power of 2 equals 3.
That's exactly right. That's what I was going to say, Jeffrey. 1 + 1 = 3. So it's good.
And in saying that, it actually makes me think, even though we used to be sharing a premises for like 5 years with Pat and Stick, why we never did a collaboration with those guys.
Yeah.
Funny, isn't it?
There you
like
go.
Butter flavored ice cream it's a trend, I hear.
Burnt
never too
ice
late.
cream in a sandwich
Never too
by
late.
Pat and Stick.
Be amazing.
Love it.
Love it.
And what has that enabled you to do creatively? Because you said that, you know, your brand isn't locked into style too much. There is actually a lot of scope to kind of add different graphic elements to your brand, I think you were saying at the time.
Yep.
So what kind of things has that enabled, those collaborations enabled you to do on the branding front?
Look, because we've got a very strong, iconic sort of look about the head, it doesn't matter where you place that head, people know it as Pepe Saya, those that know. So
Yeah.
we sort of felt like, we don't need to write a brand, manual or a brand guide for our product or brand. We just want it to be free, unlock
Yeah.
all of that. So one of the great things that we enjoyed doing, earlier this year, which you mentioned about, where we put it out on Facebook and we said, look, we need some graphic designers, is we employed about 12 graphic designers to do different things for us. And the result has been incredible because we've been able to really get everything looking quite unique, but still looking Pepe Saya. And we're giving them all the same brief, like the Easter brief, we worked with a guy called Michael Woolley, which was amazing.
I love the eggs.
Yes, the eggs. That's it.
Yes, love
so the
those.
brief for that was, hey, Michael, Easter's about eggs for us. We love the theme that the Greeks do where they paint the eggs. That sort of, Eastern European look about it. And then the overall theme is paint the town yellow. And he came up with this amazing theme for us for Easter, which when you got our package or you looked at our stuff on social media, it felt very Eastery. Is that a
Eastery? I think it's a pronoun or it's a
verb.
I think it's definitely an adjective that
adjective.
It should be in this year's entry of new words added to the dictionary.
I hope my mum's not listening to this. She'll kill me for using that. Have I taught you nothing? But yeah, so like the great thing about design is just people that lock themselves into design. Yes, some brands it works for some brands. Let's say they want to have that one look all the way through and smooth and just one look. For us, we've just gone, well, no, we can use black foil. We can use gold foil. We can use, the Omite one is black foil with Omite in black, and the creation of that was great. And then we really collaborated.
love that one.
Yeah, we collaborated with their graphic designer on that, and we steered it in a way we thought it needed to be steered in, and we thought it was, amazing. So. Well, we plan to have so much more fun with our brand moving forward. Now that we're solid on the ground.
Hey, Leah.
Yeah, and we feel comfortable, and we're very, we can have so much more fun with the brand.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much.
I think that. Oh, sorry. I was saying I love what you're doing. I mean, you do keep one sort of similar system, shall we say, but it works. It really works. I mean, across what you're doing. The last thing I'd love to know is, where do you see yourself going? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I mean, you could go many places with what you're doing. Yes,
absolutely. I mean, look, we have started our export journey, but more in the sense of we're looking after bakeries, say in Hong Kong and Singapore, and we do a little bit of retail. We dabble in that overseas. Obviously, that will grow, hopefully, organically. In Australia, we definitely want to become, our focus is to become a household name with an artisan butter, which is something we feel that's never really been done in the sphere of artisan.
Lurpak is probably the closest at the moment, and that's not an artisan butter.
No, it's not Australian. Yeah.
No, it's not Australian. But there's one thing that's really important to understand about the movement for Australian products, and I think it needs to be clarified, is that you can be Australian, but if that's your only calling, then you're on a very disappointing road. You have to be best in class. You have to strive to be best in class.
Do you mean like Dick Smith?
Yeah. You can't just exactly. You can't just say buy this because it's Australian. That's going to work. It's not. You have to be best in class.
Yeah.
Being Australian, unfortunately, is not the number one reason people are going to buy.
I'm really glad you said that, actually.
you've got to aim to be best in class. You've got to aim to create culture around your product.
Yeah.
And being Australian is obviously something we wear. I wear it on my head, you know, like it's the most important thing to me. But
how lucky are we?
Sorry?
How lucky are we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're very lucky and we don't take it for granted, but it's not I don't believe it's a reason to buy a product. I think that we have to work much harder on putting value into the Buy Australian, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with. That's why we've started Aussie Artisan Week, which we do every August, is to say, okay, well, we need to support artisans, because if we don't support them, we lose all of this, you know, great handmade products. But at the same time, we need to have value. So that means we have to be making outstanding products foremost, and then really promote that. Look, they're outstanding products and they're Australian. So you know, and they support the economy, and you've got a trifecta, right?
Are there any other brands in Australia you feel are really getting it right at the moment?
Oh my God,
that's
so
from
many.
Leah Jackson over at North Shore.
Okay, well, Leah, I mean, I reckon Olsen Salt is one of my favorites. I use it in my butter. Olsen Salt is definitely like a tier above. You've got, like, if you look at some gourmet products or cheese, you can't go past, you know, like Pecora Dairy. I mean, sheep's used milk cheese, that is absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, you want to see a class act of Australian products, you visit a farmer's market. It's a class act.
I agree. And that's where you started, at the
Carriage
up
Works.
in Redford, Carriage Works. That's right.
Yeah. Well, so we sold our first butters there back in 2010, and
that's right.
You
and
know,
you and Mel are still together? No.
Yeah, with Mel. Yeah, still together. And you know, our first butters were I thought they were great. Some people told us we need to pull our socks up, and we listened. You got to listen. If someone says, "Oh, I think there's something wrong here," you listen and you fix it, and that's how you become best in class.
Yeah.
Well, you have. You definitely have.
We're trying. Well, if I have, we wouldn't be trying anymore. But we're trying. We keep striving for the best.
All right. So where's the best place that people should people just go to your website to order online? If they want to talk to you, where do they go?
Yeah, look, our website's the best place. To talk to me directly, it's Instagram. I look after our Instagram account, so every tweet that comes through is from me. If you want to try the product, I mean, you know, local, I always promote the high street. I'm not one to say, you know, shopping centres are not really my thing, but high street is. I like to support the delis, the fruit shops, you know, the farmers markets. I think that's really important that we do that. I'm sure there's enough people out there to support the other ones, but you know, the more people that support the high street and the market. I started at a market, right? So if there was no people supporting that farmers market, where would we be? Nowhere.
There's no better place in Australia. I mean, Australia is, we're lucky we've got markets very available, and they're great.
Exactly.
They're the best.
But on that, majority of startup products in food, like us, like where we were 11 years ago, started a farmer's market. They're not, like, you're not going to knock on the doors of a major supermarket and they're going to go, "Oh, here you go, welcome in, and it's a great idea." No. They want it proven out there in the local independents that it works, and then they'll take you on, right?
I've actually got another question on that. The officers, we are mentors for food startup businesses at Food Labs, which is run by the University of Sydney. So we get, you know, we have discussions a lot with fledgling brands, but So a lot of them do start at the market. So what would be, I guess, your one tip to food brands who are starting out at the markets, knowing that the markets are a tough slog, right?
That's a good call.
So,
Yeah.
you know, how do you kind of then maximize your opportunity to speak with customers and test and refine the product at the markets, and then go to that next step to getting it into a wider distribution base?
Yeah, it depends how you look at it. I mean, my tip would be, it doesn't matter what size you are as a business, always think grassroots. So for us, we always looked at the farmers market being grassroots, and everything goes up from there. If it's a get quick, fast, you know, get rich quick sort of ideology you have, and you're going to take your product to a market,
Yeah, fair
I think
enough.
you're in the wrong industry.
Yeah, got you.
There's no fast money in food. It doesn't exist. I mean, I've never
No.
seen it. I've never seen it. So,
Yeah.
so it is a hard slog, and we're still at the markets 11 years later, and I personally love every minute of it. You meet a lot of people. You have to unlock opportunity. You use the market for opportunity, and not necessarily for making, you know, money from. You're investing your time into the farmers market, but you'll meet a lot of people. You'll see opportunity, but you have to be geared that way. So that's my tip. Like, you know, go look for the opportunity at the market, and not necessarily the money.
Yeah, got you.
Especially starting out. Yeah, definitely.
Leah's just got another question. We should let you go soon, but these questions are quite interesting. So in terms of a strategy, you know, I agree 100%. We've seen this happen to many people, that we know that the markets is this great opportunity to speak to people and learn from that to improve your product. But now with technology, you can go direct to consumer, as Leah pointed out. So you can set up an e-commerce website and a full sales funnel, and kind of direct people to go there. So what kind of, I'd imagine that costs a little bit more money though. So can you kind of talk about that model that people are talking about now a lot, the DTC model?
Yeah, I mean, look, you go to a farmer's market and you've got $400 worth of stock. You might sell it all, you might not, but you're guaranteed to walk out of there with a break-even sort of model with a farmer's market. When you'll
pay the people that week.
Sorry?
You'll pay the people that week. I mean, I've been in markets.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at our online strategy, and here I'll give away the house here. I mean, we spent in the month of in the month of April, we spent $17.5 thousand, so $17,500 on Google, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Yeah. So, you know, like there's no strategy that's going to give you free someone to go and buy something for free.
Yeah, of course.
So you have to have the remarketing tools. You have to have all the tools engaged to make that work. And then you've got to remember that you're in Australia. So the cost of delivery. So say we've got a minimum order on ours of $65 or $60, and you get a free shipping. Now you're buying butter. So how many people can buy, like, you know, $65 worth of butter to be shipped to their house? So you have to have other things like socks and you know, butter keepers and all this stuff, crumpets, and, you know, all this gear that you sell to make up a basket. Then you've got to understand that if you're just servicing Sydney, you might be working on the 0.0001% of people that might buy off you. And I think I might be confusing people, but I'll keep going.
I know what you're saying.
And then so Sydney's not big enough, even though it has, you know, 5 million people. So you have to have the rest of Australia. So a delivery into Sydney might be $18, but a delivery to Queensland might cost you $30, but your minimum order is $65. So you've got, it is like, there is no way that an online strategy, no matter how good it is going to be better than a solid grassroots campaign at the farmers market. There's no way. No way.
You also can't get out of bed and decide to do it from one day to the next, because for people to kind of land on that website and agree to buy a crumpet and butter kit for $55, they need to have that complete assurance that they're going to get a great product. And that assurance comes from the grassroots activity.
We started out online. Here's a tip for you. We started out online in 2015, and the reason we started our online store is that people that weren't in an area that could buy our product on retail could access our product. So it was sort of like, it was done, okay, let's just have people that can't access it, they can buy it online, we'll ship it to them, and it doesn't matter what it costs, we'll just get it to them, because if they want to have it, they can have it. And then COVID hit, and we were doing 20 to 30 packs a week for like 5 years. And then COVID hit and the market changed and it snowballed, right?
Yeah.
Like you might have bought a pair of socks online, but you weren't buying necessarily food online, you know, pre-COVID, like we're talking about a majority. So for us, we got very lucky. We were already set up, and then a wave came and we were already on the wave, and it snowballed from there. So, but we still, to get people into that funnel, as you say, you need to spend a lot of money online because there's a lot of noise. You need to make those investments.
Direct to consumer is definitely a hard market.
Yeah.
That's right.
But in the end, it may end up to be the market if you really want to have a unique product.
100%. If you want the market, you need to get the B2C, the consumer, direct to consumer. You need to cut out every single middle person there and go direct. There's no doubt about it. That is the model that's going to work. Now you can do that at a farmer's market when you start, because we're just talking about when people start. That was the question, right? Not when people are established. So yeah, definitely the consumer. Like our strategy from day one was get that butter into their mouths, they will buy. So a farmer's market allowed us to do samples, which we could get the butter straight into their mouth. And then on that moment, they could go, I like that. I don't like that. Maybe I'll buy it. Maybe next time. I'm not going home now. Oh, do you have a smaller one? Do you have one for one person? So you start understanding your market.
Yes, gotcha. Yeah. That is
well,
really
I'll be honest. I was up at do you know the Orange Grove markets in Sydney?
Yes.
I think you would.
Yes. Yep.
You had a person there, or else there was someone there that had your product there, and that was recently, and that was a direct, and I was like touched that they were actually there. I thought you were much big. You know, everyone thinks Pepe Saya, they're huge, but they were still at the markets at Oregon.
Yeah. We're still
it.
at North Sydney. We're still at Carriage Works. We're still at Orange Grove. I mean,
I love
for
it.
us, the markets are the bloodline to our business, to our customers, you know.
Introduction.
Our marketing strategy is done very simply. We get a whiteboard and we write the most important thing in the middle of the whiteboard, and everything else is around it. And the most important thing to us in the middle is it says customer. And then everything else is around it. That's your marketing plan. That's how you start a marketing plan. You put your customer in the middle of the conversation. Then you work out all the other stuff, doesn't matter. That's all noise. You just have to make sense to the customer. So that's how we do. But I guess that's for another.
I freaking love that. But listen, thank you very much for your time.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh.
No
You've
worries.
been top
Thank
shelf.
you.
And I say anyone out there, go out and buy the butter and see the difference, because there's a huge one. Not to plug you. So we'll see you soon.
No worries. Thank you.
Thanks so much,
Bye.
Pepe. All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.